Xin chào tất cả các bạn. Chào mừng các bạn quay trở lại với Rachel MADDOW. Hôm nay chúng ta sẽ cùng nghe Rachel chia sẻ bản preview của một trong những tập phim yêu thích của cô. Tại sao điều này xảy ra với Chris Hay?
Hey everybody, it's Rachel MADDOW here. You're about to hear something a little bit different, and I think you're going to like it. This is a preview of Why Is This Happening?, which is a super smart, provocative, original podcast hosted by my friend and colleague, one of my best buds, the great Chris Hayes. In Why Is This Happening?, Chris dives into issues that we don't always have the time to explore in the depth that we ought to on our nightly shows. He looks at stuff like school segregation, mass incarceration, climate change, the big stuff. And he gets at those issues through deep, engaging interviews with really, really good guests. And if you know anything about this business that we're in, you know that Chris Hayes is one of the single best interviewers working today in any medium. When Chris had me on the podcast to talk about political scandal and history and how those things help make sense of current political events, he got me talking about stuff in ways no other interviewer could. He's really, really good. So this is a preview of one of my favorite episodes. I know you're going to enjoy it. And if you do, please search for Why Is This Happening? Wherever you are listening right now, and subscribe to get the entire series. Here we go. Happy listening.
Hello and welcome to Why Is This Happening with me, your host, Chris Hayes. So my next guest is a guy named George Goehl, and who I've known for a long time. And I've known him because he came up through this organization called National People's Action, which was actually an organization that I worked for back in Chicago a little bit as a kind of contract writer, that I had friends who worked for, that my father was associated back in the day, because it's an organization that works with community organizers and community organizations around the country. And community organizing, which is something you'll hear about in this conversation, is the process by which you get people together to build power, to make demands of people in power, and to change things for the better. And it starts with nothing. It starts with like putting up a few flyers saying, come to this meeting we're going to have about the local park. And then you identify leaders, and then you start having weekly meetings, and then you've got a name for the organization, and then you've got meetings with the local alderman about what needs to be cleaned up in the park. And before you know it, you're making demands. And that is really difficult, painstaking work. And it's work that has been underinvested in communities of color for way too long and been way too overemphasized on white, particularly affluent folks. But what George is trying to do right now in this project you're going to hear about is think about how in the 21st century, in the era of a pluralizing American democracy, in an era where a lot of white people are succumbing to really nasty views about blood and soil conservatism and Trumpism and building the wall and sort of essential conceptions of American identity as whiteness, how to go into the places where that view is taking hold and fight it on the ground, identify the people who reject that view and build power among them to talk to their neighbors, to proffer a better alternative vision of what the future of America can look like. And I honestly think that's as exciting a political project as anything that's happening, because what happens if those places are left to go full Trumpist is terrifying to contemplate, and we're already seeing some of the fruits of it. And then, as you will hear, one of the things that makes George really an interesting person to listen to on this topic is he lives it. He is from the backwoods of Indiana. He has been down and out. He's gone through addiction and recovery. He's found himself in a soup kitchen because he was strung out and hungry. And he's built a life back up from that. And he's got a real vision into what our politics, what a better version of our politics could look like. You're now the director of People's Action, the People's Action Initiative, which is a kind of like umbrella group that works with a bunch of local community organizing groups across the country that organize on all kinds of stuff. And you've been doing this now for 20 years, right?
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
A lot of National People's Action was based in, and this was true of my father, who was an organizer in the Bronx, based in urban environments and communities of color, poor communities of color particularly, places that don't have a lot of social capital, places that like back of the yards in in Chicago, which is where Saul Alinsky got his start, where it's like private industry and the government railroads you because you don't have social capital. They don't care about you. But if you get together and you make demands and you bring some pressure on people, you can start to get wins and you can start to get victories and you can start to change the structures for the people that live in your community and improve the life of the people around you. And that model, has been all sorts of organizations around the country following it. And the work you're doing now involves that, but it also involves organizing in places that are far from urban centers, right?
That's right. Yeah.
You're sort of focusing a bit more on, or you have a sort of channel of your organizing that is basically, organizing among white rural folks.
Yep, that's right. I mean, we made a decision really as Trump ascended, before he was even the Republican nominee and before he got elected president, that it was clear that the broader we needed more organizing and infrastructure building in rural and small town communities, and that we had ceded that turf to the right for way too long, and we were now really paying the price for it in a different way. But it didn't mean we had to cede that turf any longer. So we made a decision to scale up a project to go out and talk to thousands of people in rural communities. We focused on a set of places. One were Obama to Trump counties. There were 700 counties that voted for President Obama twice. A third of those went to Trump, and in many cases the swings were 20 to 30%. Areas of the country that were in just economic free fall and people are hurting, and if we are who we say we are as progressives, we care about that and we want to be there. And we also looked for places where there was a rise in visible white nationalist organizing and wanted to actually be a counterforce in a set of those places. So a couple quick things about that. We've just finished 10,000 conversations, many of them on the front porch, some of them at soup kitchens and food banks and churches, where we asked a couple questions, which we could come back to. And then we've also helped kind of facilitate a mini migration back home. So on election night 2016, a number of people who are white organizers living in major cities decided, you know what, I think I got to go back home and organize my people. And so we've tried to facilitate helping people get back. And in some cases, they're moving to states that, political operatives would be excited about, like North Carolina or Wisconsin. And then some of them are moving to states like Alabama and Indiana. It's going to be hella hard to raise money for those places. But regardless, we've helped people do that. So I think we're running the biggest or one of the biggest economic and racial justice rural outreach strategies in the country. We have competition, but the competition is the alt-right, the Klan, and the Republican Party. So
I want to. So you said two things there. You're focusing on places that were Obama, Trump counties, rural, predominantly white. I mean, that's almost definitionally right. So there are no Obama, Trump counties that are predominantly black, and places where the alt-right or white supremacist, white nationalists are organizing. What do you mean by that? Where's that happening? What's that look like?
So Alamance County in North Carolina, huge white nationalist organizing happening there. That was a reason we helped facilitate a migration there. Lots of stuff around Confederate flags and Confederate monuments, very visible public organizing. And so it felt like we needed to have a counterforce there. Maybe less explicitly white nationalist, but in Stafford, New Jersey, in this last election cycle, a Make America Great Again slate ran and primaried. Stafford's like a town of 27,000 people. This Make America Great Again slate ran on a platform that was basically keep immigrants out and the guns in, which is hardly your usual municipal platform.
Yeah.
And they beat the incumbent Republicans in every race, mayor on down. One other thing that we're dealing with is, and this is why we feel like we've got to be present, because if we're not present, somebody else is. This is just one little example, but and I could send you a copy of it, a flyer we found in North Carolina that says basically, are you addicted to opioids? It's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. You deserve help. So quite loving in message. Please call us, the White Knights of the KKK.
Holy shit. Holy shit.
They are out organizing like crazy, and sometimes it feels like progressives or the left have said, whatever, we're going to, we're moving on. And for us, I guess I'd say three things. It's first, our orientation towards rural communities should be humanitarian first. if progressives are who we say we are, it's like people are suffering and like we care about that. And then second, like we have to be there and inform meaning making. It's actually bigger than elections, but where there's a whole battle for meaning making in hearts and minds long term. I think we've both got room to go up. I also think we've not hit bottom.
I think that's a really important point. Like, there's a world in which every rural white county in America votes like a rural white county in Alabama.
Yep.
That's a thing that could happen in America's future. And what that would do in America's politics and the results it would produce at every level of government are horrifying to contemplate.
And I don't think enough of us have sat down and really contemplated what that looks like. And, you know, you look at that, you pop open a New York Times map of the last election or the 2016 election, and you see that big sea of red. I think we tend to write off that sea of red instead of remember that in most of those counties, 35 up to 49% of people voted Democrat.
Right.
But I don't know. We have to figure out what we're doing to make them want to do that in the next election and the next election. And I think these are voters that I think we take for granted and at our own peril.
Hey everyone, it's Chris Hayes. If you enjoyed this preview, search for Why Is This Happening wherever you're listening right now to hear the full episode and subscribe to the entire series. Thanks for listening.
Hàng tuần, Chris hay có những câu hỏi lớn khiến anh thức trắng đêm. Thời khắc này có ý nghĩa như thế nào đối với lịch sử thế giới? Tại sao điều này xảy ra? Podcast này bắt đầu trả lời những câu hỏi này. Các nhà văn, chuyên gia và nhà tư tưởng, những người cũng đang cố gắng cùng với Chris để tìm kiếm câu trả lời và giúp anh ấy có một đêm ngon giấc. Tại sao chuyện này xảy ra? Được trình bày bởi MSNBC và NBC.